Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Today's episode, I have Ryan Thompson, owner of the 10th Mountain Distillery. Ryan, how are you?
Hey, Dr. Mitch, I'm great this morning. How you doing?
Let's introduce people to your story. You and I have talked off camera, and I just fell in love with your story. Tell us how Ryan Thompson ended up becoming Ryan Thompson, the owner of a whiskey distillery.
Well, yeah, when you say it from a bird's eye view, owning a whiskey distillery in Vail, Colorado is a pretty cool deal. You know, I think at least a lot of people concur as well when I chat with them. They're like, man, you're living the life. You're skiing every day and making whiskey every day. And, you know, that's partially true, partially not true. There's certainly a lot behind the business that goes on that people don't see. And I get on the hill quite a bit and keep on skiing, but not nearly as much as I used to. But that's okay, right? That's okay. But I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, finished high school there in 1994, and then went to SMU in Dallas, played soccer on the soccer team at SMU, and then graduated with a general business degree and started interviewing, going down the corporate road there in Dallas for the McKinsey and companies, the Bain and Co's, the corporate consulting gigs, and purposely put too high of a price tag on my name for the value I was bringing to one of those companies. So I wanted to get the offer I wanted because what I really wanted to do was come up to the Colorado mountains and ski for a couple years and live the ski bum lifestyle for a while. And so after not getting the jobs I had applied for, which I knew was coming, I just bartended around Dallas for a couple months, getting some experience, if you will, and wanted to move up to Vail and bartend at night and ski during the day and live that dream for a while in my young 20s. And all my buddies, and they're like, you can't do that. Everyone wants to go to Vail and bartend at night and ski during the day. There's not a chance you're going to get a bartending job when you move that town. Everybody wants that job. I'm like, all right, watch me. See ya.
Well, you know, if you would have been my kid, I'd have been like, what the hell are you doing? No, you need to go do something better with your life. What are you talking about? Right? I mean, doesn't that seem like that's that old school thinking? And that's why I love your story so much. I would have been like, what the hell you mean you're going to go up to Vail and ski and bartend during the day? But boy, it sure turned out to be something.
Yeah, you know, I was really fortunate to have supportive parents in that regard. After graduating college, they're like, our job's done. We support you 100% emotionally and spiritually and all that, but don't ask us for another dollar financially, especially if you're going to Vail and going to bum around for a little bit. I'm like, I understand that. That's cool. So I had saved up about $1,500 in 1998, and I figured that was enough to get up here and get going. And sure enough, I came up and got a job working catering gigs at a resort here, at a hotel resort. And I was down to $5 to my name before I got my first paycheck in about 3 or 4 weeks after I had arrived here. But I had a place to live. I had some income coming in and having a good time and starting to get to know some people. Ended up through that catering gig, I got a bartending job my first winter season out here. So I had a bartending job by November after moving out here in August. So 3 months later, roughly. And so I was calling up my buddies. I'm like, got a bartending job, boys. Come on up and visit. And so bartended around town for about 4 years, and then figured I needed to get along with my life. And so I started going down the road to possibly be an attorney, go down and get my MBA degree, going down that road. So I was going to do the combo program, MBA JD degree. And I studied for my LSATs and took the LSATs and the GMATs and all that nonsense. And when I was waiting for my results to come back, and then I was applying to the colleges, that I had a restaurant opportunity land in my lap at one of the restaurants I was working at, a place called Sweet Basil, fine dining restaurant in Vail Village, still around today, really nice place. Two of my buddies that I worked with there, we kept on watching this other restaurant close by in town in Westvale, and thought we could just do a much better job with running that place. And we talked about it for about a year. And then one day, one of my buddies comes in, is like, hey, guess what's for sale? And sure enough, it was that restaurant. And so we put a bid in on it and ended up buying that restaurant through a couple different things. That's an interesting story in itself if you want to go down that road.
I do, man. You got a great story. Let's go it.
Yeah, it's so we put a offer price in at $250,000 to buy the restaurant. One of my partners and our business partners and I went up to Des Moines, Iowa to invest in tax liens for a week and play around in that world. And then when we came back and went to check on the restaurant, there were chains on the door of the restaurant. It was completely locked. And so we peered in the windows, and there was food on the table still. We could see into the kitchen. There's food in the kitchen. We're like, what the hell is going on? So we called our business broker. Like, oh yeah, you guys didn't hear while you guys were gone in Des Moines buying tax liens, the IRS came and shut down the restaurant for not paying their taxes. Like, all right, well, what's up with that? And we're like, well, there's no business to be bought anymore. So, but since you guys had an offer on the table, the property owner wants to talk to you guys about signing a new lease. And so we ended up signing a new lease with the property owner, and didn't end up having to buy the business for $250,000. We just bought the equipment for pennies on the dollar, and got into that space, and have been there for 20 years since. It's the West Side Cafe in West Vail. So,
you know, you and I had talked earlier because I've been kind of a little bit hyped up on this thing that it had to happen, right? And obviously, you know, if you get those jobs down in Texas, you don't own this. If you don't go do what you do with the tax lien, this doesn't happen either, right? These are things that I inspire me when I hear stories like yours, and I'm hoping, not hoping because he will, I'll make him, but I do want my 20-year-old to listen to your story, right? Because it's now you've taken a passion, something that you wanted to do and that you love to do, and have turned it into this just incredible business. And where along your way did you start realizing that this is what I'm designed to do, this is what I want to do, and then how did that turn into the 10th Mountain?
Well, being an entrepreneur has always been in my blood since I can remember. Since I was in single-digit years as a kid, I had not only a lemonade stand, but the ultimate lemonade stand I'd buy fireworks at 4th of July and stockpile them and sell them throughout the years at the lemonade stand when you couldn't get fireworks anywhere else, and all the kids were excited to come get fireworks when it wasn't 4th of July or New Year's Eve. And so I had like the ultimate lemonade stand, sold candy at it and whatnot. And junior high school, I was the candy man. I had, instead of books in my locker, I had it full of candy. And that was, the school frowned upon that. So, you know, it was kind of underground candy man. So, and then in high school, did a number of different things. One of the things, I built a volleyball court in my backyard and held volleyball tournaments, sand volleyball tournaments on the weekends. And would always take 10% of the pot for that. So I would always just be doing something not too traditional, I guess. Then when I moved to Vail, when I was bartending, it wasn't called a side hustle 25 years ago. It was just another little gig I had on the side that around the bartending. And it was selling infusion jars and an infusion recipe book and how to infuse different liquors with fruits and vegetables and herbs and whatnot. And did that for about 4 years, and then started the restaurant. And that was a more legit business, if you will. And still business partners with those two guys I started that with, and that was 20 years ago. And then I was just watching what the craft distillery movement was doing back in the late 2000s, 09, 10. And there were some bigger players in Colorado that were doing some cool things. Breck Bourbon, Stranahan's, not afraid to give those guys a shout out. Leopold Brothers, all great distilleries. And I was like, well, someone in the Vail Valley is going to be making whiskey sooner or later. I'm like, hell, it might as well be me, right? So I homebrewed quite a bit, just for fun, just as a hobbyist, and just gave beer out to my friends and family and had a good time with that. And that's the first step in distillation. And then the next step is taking a beer in essence and distilling it off and aging it. And so I came across a school, an actual legit school called Moonshine University. Great name for it. It's out in Louisville, Kentucky, still around today. They're doing great things out there. And I was one of the first students in their class that they held in January 2013. And got hands-on distilling knowledge there with a commercial size still. Learned a lot more chemistry behind distilling, the marketing and the business aspects of running a distillery. And then came back, found a guy in Fort Collins that built my first still. It's a 13-gallon still. We have it on display at the distillery. That's Old Bessie, and got started with Old Bessie and started making some spirits out of that. Wrote a business plan and got fully licensed, and here we are today. Long story short.
Was it an easy road for you?
Fuck no, it wasn't.
So tell us about that. You know, there's a lot of people, when we reach people and we love these stories of motivation, perseverance. A lot of people, and you and I talked about this, you know, guys you went to college with, they see the success guy at the end of the road, right? But the road, it wasn't always easy.
Sure. Yeah, it's not easy by any means. It's still not easy. And we're into it 9 years later, and we're distributed across 15 states and direct to consumer in 32 states. And Sure, we're a little better off than we were last year and the year before and 8 years ago, but it's still not easy. And that's just the nature of business, right? If it was easy, anyone would do it, kind of thing. But no, it's been super challenging. It's been our distiller, Sean Hogan, and I. Sean's been with us since day one. He was one of my first confidants in saying, "Hey, I'm going to start a new distillery in town named in honor of the 10th Mountain Army Division. Would you like to help me out? Would you like to join?" And because I was trying to recruit him to become our tasting room manager in Vail Village, because he had bartended around town for 20 years. And he's like, "Ryan, I'm over being in front of the public." He's like, "You got anything else for me?" I love the idea. He's like, I'm like, "Well, do you want to distill?" He goes, "Dude, I've never distilled a day in my life. You kidding me?" I'm like, "That's fine. We'll learn together, man. I'll send you out to Moonshine University. I just came back from it and we'll learn together." He's like, "Man, if you're willing to take that risk on me, then sure." So he's been with us since day one. And he and I talk on occasion, like, "Dude, would we do this again if we if we knew then what we know now," kind of thing. And I paused a little bit longer, but I think I still would do it. But certainly much more educated now. And I'm an open book when people are looking to start a distillery. They'll come to me and I'll sit down with them, have an hour, 2 hour conversation, answer whatever questions they have. Sometimes they'll go on and do it. Sometimes they won't. But there's high barriers to entry from federal, state, local level. You have to be fully licensed. We carry, at this point with the 15 states we're in, we probably carry 20 different licenses, something like that. So you got to manage all that. And then it's the financial cost to enter is pretty high. The equipment that you have to buy, you're starting a brewery and then tacking on another few steps after a brewery with the distillation process and the aging process. So there's some barriers to entry there. The grit and dirt you got to get into. And I learned at the restaurant business, you got to be a plumber, you got to be an HVAC professional, you got to be an electrician, you got to be a repairman, etc. You got to wear all the hats, right? And same thing goes for a distillery as well. And so we learn every day still. We're always learning something new, a better distillation process, how to fix XYZ. Oh, the boiler went down or the cooling tower just went down. Well, let's troubleshoot and fix it before we call out the real professional. And so, yeah, we're always learning something. I know how to work on a mill these days. So it's something I never would have thought I would have in my back pocket. But yeah, there's always hurdles to get over. And we could spend the whole podcast on that. So,
well, those are the greatest stories, right? Because it isn't easy, but when you're following a passion, it makes it a little bit more palpable. But how did you get started though? Where'd you get the first money to get you going?
Yeah, sure. Couple different. I borrowed, begged, and stole money from every nook and cranny I could. Is what it comes down to. I had sold a previous financial business in the mortgage industry. I represented title companies when they didn't have local representation, went out and closed loans. I did that for 8 years while I was running the restaurant as well. And so I started that. I wanted to run for a couple of years, and then after about 5 years, I started marketing it for sale, and so someone finally bought it for the right price. And then for that money, I was able to take that money and invest it into the distillery. It ended up being a very small part of the overall investment. Started a Kickstarter campaign as well. The Kickstarter campaign was great for press and public awareness and to get the word out. Originally back in, this was 2014 is when we did the Kickstarter, in April 2014. So just 8 years exactly. And we raised a small chunk with that as well. But then with that, we were able to get the brand and get some small equipment and start actually building the brand and making the spirits and getting going. And then a local bank, we went to 4 or 5 local banks that all advertise how supportive of small businesses they are in town. One of those. And then when it comes down to it, they all say, yes, we'll do it. And then 3 months down the line, and they're like, no, we can't do this deal. But one bank actually finally took the risk on us and gave us a small SBA loan. We used that for about 2 years. And then during that time, we kept on searching for a larger SBA loan to expand and grow even more, to build out our tasting room at the distillery, to buy bigger commercial equipment. And we had talked to another additional 6 to 7 banks from around the country. And then we're about to sell some equity. We had an investor that was interested, and at that point would have been an angel investor, really vertically aligned, vertically integrated guy that came with a lot of value as well. But he wanted way too much of the company for what he was investing in. So I had heard a guy, Jeff Clark, speak at one of the industry conferences that I had attended. He had a 1-hour class of how to finance a distillery. And I had wrote his name down in my notes, and I revisited those notes, and I was like, let me give this Jeff Clark guy a call. He's out in wine country, out in Sonoma area. And I call up Jeff. I'm like, hey man, I heard you talk at this conference a couple months ago, and this is my position. Do you think Live Oak Bank is the bank that he represented? He's like, do you guys think you'd have any interest? Like, Ryan, actually, you guys are exactly who we're looking for. The president of Live Oak, they're from North Carolina. The president of Live Oak vacations here in Vail. So that was serendipitous. Unbeknownst to me, they had come out and did a little blind shopping, on us to make sure we were legit and what's going on. And then sure enough, they gave us the SBA, a large SBA loan that we were able to use to expand, buy bigger equipment. And that's where we're at today. So
what if you'd never wrote his name down?
I wouldn't own 100% of the company right now. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, not a chance. We were close, and we get it's humbling. We have people that are interested in investing pretty often, and certainly at that time, people were looking to grab a piece of what we were doing. So we were very close to selling off a percentage of the company to raise some money. But then I gave Jeff a call, and sure enough, that was a phone call that did it. So, and Jeff and I are great friends today. He loves what we have going on. He's super passionate about the industry, and I lean on him when I have a question. And it's been a great relationship, not only with Jeff, but with Live Oak Bank as well.
Yeah, I know this story all too well myself, and it's what the reason that again this inspired me, and producer Chad's brought me some just incredible stories, and this one I didn't know where we were going with it, because I knew he just loved. He loves whiskey so much that I didn't exactly know where we were going. I thought maybe we were going to hit you up for some free whiskey.
Hey, that's on the table. That's all right.
And then I get this story, and what I love about it is when we take the whole entire story, kind of what we do with True Talks is we love to inspire. I mean, man, how many banks told you no and you kept going? How many times could you have folded? You got $5 in your pocket doing all these side gigs to end up where you're at. Tell me two things. One, are your parents pretty proud of what you've accomplished? And two, what do your friends say about all the struggles and all the things you went through to get to where you're at now?
Yeah, sure. Let's start with my parents. So my dad was a big supporter of when I started the restaurant back in 2002. And he had a number of his friends, after he was sharing what I was doing, starting a restaurant in Vail, come up to him and was like, you sure that's the road you want your son going down? Restaurant business is a hard business. You only 90% of those fail in the first XYZ number of years and all that garbage. And my dad's like, no, Ryan's got it. He can do it. I've got 100% confidence with him starting this. He'll figure out a way to do it. And Dad has always been very supportive of whatever I got into. He was my number one fan. When I started the distillery, we're start talking about it. And I was getting serious about it. He's like, I was talking with him and a couple of his buddies. He was up visiting. And we were sitting on his porch at the house he was staying at. And he's like, Ryan, I'll give you a 50-50 chance of getting this one off the ground. He's like, that's being pretty generous, I think. I'm like, 50-50, Dad, you were all about the restaurant business, and that's a super risky business. He's like, yeah, this has a lot more challenges. Like, I'll give you a 50-50 shot. I'm like, that's motivation enough for me. I'll show you wrong. And so got off the ground, and Dad was our number one fan. That's what it comes down to. Dad loved our whiskey. We would have great times with it. He loved hanging out at the distillery. He was friends with all of our employees. I lost my dad about a year and a half ago, so his picture with him and I hugging overlooks our still right now, because the guys wanted it meant a lot to the guys, our dad's friendship. And so once Dad passed, they got a picture of Dad and I and put it up by the still. He's like, Dad's always watching over the still. He's always watching over us. So he was our number one fan. Mom, on the other hand, Mom was not a drinker. Never had been, never was. Mom passed about 4 years ago, but before she passed, I got to give her a tour of the distillery. And she's like, Ryan, I'm blown away by this. I can't believe what you've done. And my mom lived in Austin. Dad lived in Houston. Mom wouldn't come up very often to visit, but on occasion she would. So this time I got her to the distillery and taken her around, and she was blown away by it. And then we were leaving the distillery, going back into the tasting room just through a doorway. And she paused and looked back, and she's like, all this for a drink of whiskey, huh, Ryan? I was like, you're damn right, Mom. So my girlfriend guy actually put that quote above, got it made on a plaque, and now that's hanging right above that doorway as well. So the parents are always very supportive, maybe in different ways, but I couldn't ask for better parents along in those regards. They're entrepreneurs themselves. Mom was always doing different things, having a couple different businesses. Dad was very successful as an attorney in Houston, and then he had a couple side businesses as well. And so he was always doing different things. They both were. So very supportive of my entrepreneurial lifestyle and taking chances and taking risks. That's what they were all about too. So in regards to my friends, early on, I've had some friends that have obtained a level of success as well. And I asked them to invest in the business, and I had a great business plan. A lot of people had said it was one of the best business plans they had ever seen. So I knew I'd done a good job on the business plan, right? And I was looking to raise some money and talk about the local guy here that's vertically integrated in the brewery business and farms and whatnot, and boxes and cans and production. But then I also presented it to a couple of my buddies that I knew had some deeper pockets. And they're like, Ryan, we love it, but we're going to pass at this point. They all said no. They're like, good luck. We'll be a fan. We'll support it. We'll buy it. But right now it's not the right investment for us. And so I'm still really good friends with those guys today, and I still hang out with them a couple times a year. And they'll look back, and I'll bring them bottles, and they're like, damn, man, this is good whiskey, and this is so cool what you're doing, and we follow what you're doing and how you're growing. Like, and I could see a little regret in their eye that maybe they didn't take advantage of the early opportunity there. But nonetheless, we're all still really good friends, and they're doing great, and then we're getting along just fine too. So.
Well, again, the inspiration of this story, and I always like to recap these things. The supportive parents, that's huge. For people out there, and sometimes I even struggle with this as a parent. Sometimes I hear this dream, and if my son tells me that, I would have been like, oh man, I would have been very much like your dad. I think I'm 50% in on this. I think this is something that, there's a big chance, big risk. We always worry about our kids doing well, and you hope they can support themselves and do the right thing. Your perseverance, I don't think this happens unless you have that entrepreneurial spirit, because usually a couple no's and people cave, and you didn't do that, obviously.
The no's are motivation. The no's are motivation for me to keep on going and to prove them wrong.
I know, and that's why I love these podcasts. This is why we run them. We want people to hear your story and say, man, you get that no, just fuel. Use that for fuel. Use that for whatever it is you need to do. And then to do it in Vail, I mean, man, probably one of the most expensive places on the planet, right? And again, it's just such an amazing story. Tell us how you came up with the name of the company, though.
Yeah, sure. So we're named 10th Mountain Whiskey and Spirit Company, named in honor of the 10th Mountain Army Division. They originated in our area, just a few miles south of Vail, in a place called Camp Hale in the 1940s. They were the first mountain warfare specific Army division to go over and fight battles in the Apennine Mountains in Italy, northern Italy, and near the Gothic line during World War II. Back in the late 1930s, there was a guy named Minnie Dole that was really encouraging the U.S. government to start their own mountain regiment. And so finally, with his encouragement and his direction and his lead, the U.S. government said, yeah, we do need some mountain warfare soldiers. And so they found the perfect spot to train, which is just south of Vail in a place called Camp Hale. And they trained there for about 2.5 years and thought they weren't ever going to get deployed in World War II. They were a bunch of 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds, really eager to get in and battle and challenge themselves and fight for the country. And they were starting to get a feeling that they weren't going to be deployed. And then finally, their unit got called to deploy over, and they fought in a couple of very significant battles in World War II in Italy. One of the most famous battles was Battle of Riva Ridge, which was a game changer. Just before, a couple months before the end of the war. And so when they had learned to ski, they had learned to rock climb, they had learned, they fell in love with the mountains and the mountain lifestyle and living in the mountains while they were training at Camp Hale. And so when they returned, they wanted to share the mountain lifestyle with their friends and family and share the sport of skiing. And in essence, those soldiers, those vets, when they returned, they started the modern day sport of skiing as we know now. over 62 different ski resorts across the country were started by 10th Mountain vets. Vail Mountain being one of those, to name a few others. Aspen Mountain, Arapahoe Basin, the Olympic Ski School in Steamboat Springs was started by a 10th Mountain vet. The Knowles Experience, the National Outdoor Leadership School, that was started by a 10th Mountain vet. Nike, actually everyone's obviously heard of Nike, that was started by a 10th Mountain vet. Phil Knight's business partner was a guy named Bill Bowerman, who served in 10th, and on and on and on. So these guys had a huge influence in the modern day sport of skiing and the outdoor lifestyle that we all enjoy up here. And without those guys, we wouldn't be here in Vail doing what we love, skiing a great mountain, being able to do what we love to do, whatever that is. For us, it's making great spirits. For the next person, it's something else, but we want to have our freedom to do what we're doing. And so we're like starting the distillery. I'm like, well, what a better way to honor these guys than name our distillery after their Army division. And so they deactivated when they got back from World War II, and then they reactivated in 1985. They're currently stationed in upstate New York in a place called Fort Drum. They're one of the most active military divisions today. They have been over the last 25 years as well. And so we do a lot of support with different military nonprofits, not only 10th Foundation, but I just counted yesterday, we're working with 6 different military nonprofits right now on different projects. It's something that's near and dear to our heart to support the military and to give back not only to our local community, but to the state and also national communities as well. So it's something that we hold very near and dear to our heart. So.
And I totally appreciate that. You know, it's really easy for somebody to put their name up on a business or a distillery that they've done. And I love that part about your story, just the humbleness of who you are, the giving back. I believe that you got to have that in your heart to have a successful business anyway. You got to always want to give back and sharing the wealth and sharing the knowledge, which is why I appreciate you coming on our show and just, you know, laying your heart out there and exposing the stuff that you went through in order to get to where you're at today. That means a lot to us here at True Talks, because we love when somebody listens to that story and they get a hold of us and says, oh my God, that guy inspired me to go do this or inspired me to do that. A couple things. I know you got a couple bottles behind you. Let's show it. Let's show some of those on camera and tell us a little bit about them.
Sure. This one here is our 10th Mountain Bourbon. It is our best seller. It's 92 proof. It's 75% corn, 21% rye, 4% malted barley in the mash bill. Again, we're an open book on what we're doing here recipe-wise. So this guy here is our American Single Malt. It is exclusive just to our tasting rooms in Vail Village and at our distillery in Gypsum, which is just about 30 minutes west of Vail. So we just released this a couple months ago. It's delicious. American Single Malts are an upcoming category, so you're going to start seeing more of these around at your local liquor store. And then this is a special project that we've done. It's our 10th Mountain Brandy. And we collaborated with a vineyard out in Monterey Valley, California, and they had a bunch of Pinot Noir left over. And I got introduced to them through actually a veteran that I had met through one of the nonprofits that we support called Vail Veterans Organization. And I had met, we were doing an event one night supporting them, and had met this soldier named Kyle Pletsky. Vail Vets takes wounded vets from around the country and reintroduce them to the outdoor lifestyle. In their winter program, it's skiing, it's snowboarding. In the summer programs, it's golfing, it's mountain biking, it's hiking, et cetera, given whatever kind of physical challenge that they have sustained during the war. And so I had met this guy named Kyle Pletsky, and we just hit it off that night, and we're having a great time drinking whiskey and swapping stories. Long story short, he ends up at this vineyard with a job and calls me up, and he's like, Ryan and his boss, Justin, they call, hey, we have 3,500 gallons of Pinot Noir left over this season. Do you guys want it to distill off and make brandy out of? And I was like, well, shit, we've never made brandy before in our life. I don't think I've ever even bought a bottle off the shelf. And so we might get it and completely screw it up. And they're like, that's fine. We're either going to throw it down the drain or have you guys distill it off. I'm like, all right, well, cool. We'll take it. How much is it going to cost? I'm like, I don't know. What does 3,500 gallons of Pinot Noir cost, right? And he goes, oh, we're not going to charge you. We're just going to give it to you. I was like, well, in that case, bring it on tomorrow. Come on. And that was a few years back, and we aged it in our used bourbon barrels. And it just actually won a gold medal just a couple of weeks ago in the San Francisco World Spirit Comp. So pretty happy about that. So, but that's one of the collaborations that came about from one of the nonprofits that we support. And Kyle Pletsky is one of my good buddies these days still. So
it's all, dude, there's no mistakes. It was supposed to happen. It had to happen, man. It's just the way it is. Tell us again before we let you go. I need to know, how do people, where your locations are at? I know you have tasting rooms. How do people come in and get a hold of your products?
Sure, absolutely. Online at 10thwhiskey.com, and that's 10th whiskey with an E.com. We're across all socials at 10th MTN Whiskey, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. We're across all socials. We have a tasting room in Vail Village. We have a tasting room at our distillery just a few miles west in Gypsum. My email is ryan@10thwhiskey.com. Feel free to email me as well. So we're out there, and you can find us in 15 states at your local liquor stores, and then direct to consumer from our website at 10thwhiskey.com.
Ryan Thompson, the owner of 10th Distillery, 10th Mountain Distillery. Unbelievable story, unbelievable inspiration, and especially kind of where you come from, where you're at now. We want everybody, all of our listeners, to hit you up, buy your stuff, come up and visit you. I know me and producer Chad are going to make a trip up there at some point. We're going to, that could be expensive. I mean, you haven't met producer Chad yet.
Bring your son as well. That'd be fun to meet him too.
I would love to. We always hope that when somebody's listening, I mean, they have these passions, and if it is, you just sound like such an amazing, humble guy. And you know what? If somebody could take you up on an hour of your time and of your life, and just that you help them out and give them a pathway, sometimes, again, it's supposed to happen. You wrote the name of the guy down on the piece of paper that kind of changed it all. I thank you for that. I thank you for coming on our show and telling us all about what you do and your inspirational story. I could feel that with your dad. I could feel it still there. It's still going on. He's watching over the whole thing. And of course, you got to love the quote by Mom. That sounds exactly like what my mom would do. So you're an incredible human being. And I want to thank you for coming on and telling your story and inspiring us in ways that, it may not be the way that other people or even ourselves think that we need to live life. And you took the risk, you took the challenge, and it's paid off. And congratulations.
Thanks, Dr. Mitch. I appreciate it. That means a lot, man. Thanks for having me on the show. And I look forward to having one with you guys here in person soon.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on and telling the story.
You got it. Thanks, guys.